Okay, welcome back, and we are on to the part that pretty much everybody cares about, and try to inject some humor into this because you're either going to dig into this and really understand it, or you're just going to kind of understand it and just trust that the numbers work. But the bottom line is, for this particular page, and I will show you, I don't know how many videos I'll do in this series. You could spend a while in here. To show how this all kind of comes together, but there's just a bunch of math going on and a bunch of columns and cells that relate to one another and all those other Excel formulas that you've kind of seen. But anyways, I'll get rid of this. I'm going to try to get it at section at a time, so we're going to focus on this first section in this video. So let me go ahead and zoom in. This is going to be data from your wing, so if you were to use this report, go ahead and just fill in your 126 area filling, whatever it is. But this first column here, get a little closer. So initial data to be entered, this would be an annual thing, and then automatically calculated. Again, I did consider locking this particular screen out so you wouldn't break it or something like that, but you really just need to be comfortable coming in here, adjusting the figures, and at least understanding that level of detail, or whoever in the office does do that. So the first thing is MRV information. Now I'll pull up an MRV. This is an old one for our wing, and there's all kinds of good juicy information in here. You'll coordinate with your FSS, but this is just showing the information you really need for your MRV. So make sure you get with them on that, so that you have the proper number of work years that you're actually going to be funded at, or the funded positions that you have in the fiscal year. NGB will come down and tell you what percentage. So for mine, I just entered 257. NGB temps, these are things like the fire resources or other very specific things where you need to be executing that specifically where they tell you, and we've seen that in the McP and so on and so forth with these taskers, where you can't just take these work years and execute them and roll them up as part of your overall thing. So we like to see them split out. So that's how this analysis has worked. And then bulk temp techs, these are given, and they could be given, they could not be given, depends on your wing, but we want to see those separately as well, because these are full-time positions. These could go away. These could go away. So I do want to set those out separately, and that's information that my wing leadership also wants to know. Funding percentage, that's going to change year to year potentially. The last few years, NGB's funded Civpay at 100%, but it's not always been like that. So at least in this case, 100% of your work years are going to be funded. You would adjust as needed, and then it totals all that up for you. The next thing, work year information. Now, it is in the NGB guidance, and we're going to do some prelude videos, so to speak, to Civpay to kind of do some Civpay specifics. I'm not going to be going through all the nuts and bolts of Civpay in this video. I'm just trying to get you comfortable with the tool. But this 2096, you may be, where does it 2096 come from? 2088, 2080, I don't understand. You can get with NGB, or the source of it is OMB A11. Circular A11. So I went out to Google and Googled that, and on page 274 you see compensable days and hours for current and future fiscal years. 2016 is 2096, 2017 will be 2080. So that's where that comes from, and you'll plug 2080 in there for next year. First pay period ended, you'll want to plug that in because that's going to change. Last day of the fiscal year, you're going to want to change that. Hours in the first pay period, so once you know the end date, you'll just look at your calendar and how many hours could have been worked. Hours in last pay period happens to be 80 hours in the last pay period this year. That will change. And then we come to here, where these calculate for you, where there's total pay periods in terms of numbers. So 26.2, you're always going to have a little bit on the front or the back, depending on what year it is. How many we've completed based upon other formulas, like the today formula, so that updates itself, and we can do calculations based on that. Pay periods remaining is important for projection purposes, but again, these are blue. These will do that for you. Current pay period work year factor, when we talked about the hiring plan tab, we come back to here, see, and so if we were to do more temps now, that's not in the data. This is the number that it's going to affect. So if I bring somebody on right now in this pay period I don't have data for the rest of the year, that's the amount of a work year. So we're referencing these. The other things in this particular tab, current fiscal year total annual authority. You can see I can't spell, so I'll fix that later. But so you'll plug in what it actually is. Now you're going to get funded at not 100%. So later in the videos when I show you where this ties in, don't worry about it. It's really, this is a September type of calculation for you. So late August, September type of thing, when that last accrual hits the DFAST post, and then you're trying to figure out if you need more or less, kind of get on the same page as the guys at NGB who are sending you the money. Prior year gross civilian pay, this is going to come into play when it comes for your UFERs that can be funded out of Civpay, and for your awards amounts, and that depends on guidance that comes down. So unfunded limit is 1% of the prior fiscal year. That's why we like to have that in there. And then awards limitation based upon what OSD sends down through NGB, and then we will get it. But right now it's 0.96% of the prior years can be sent on awards. And there's some other things with QSIs and whatnot, but that would be handled at the unit level, and there'll be a lot more discussion. Non-R60 expense, this is for example civilian PCS. That's not going to show up in your R60. So if we move a group commander from another place and it costs 20 grand, you would just plug in 20 grand there, and then it'll be counted in your figures as part of a work year, or whatever factor of a work year that is. Projection assumptions, this right here, so what it's doing is when we are going throughout a year, you have figures like, let me scroll up, you've got your adjusted pay, you've got your LSLs, your pay period work year costs, so on and so forth. That's establishing a trend, and so if I highlight all of this, I can say the average per pay period is 1.452 million, and that is just going to be a rolling average. It'll smooth it out, depends how you want to extrapolate here. So what this does is say, do you want to use the whole fiscal year as it rolls out as the average minus that first part there? Or do you want to use the last 3 pay periods to give you more recent kind of history? So for example, we're in the middle of our RCP and people are leaving, so your work year execution, your dollars, could be affected in that those most recent pay periods, and they'd be much more meaningful to you. However, if you don't have any of those known things, you may want to use the rest of the fiscal year so that anomalies that are going to spike one way or another, you may understand that and not want to have that affect your projections as much. So you would just click one or the other to determine if you wanted to use the year as it rolls out, or the last 3 is how it is set right now. That's it for this video. We'll keep going in the next.